Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Pilecki-Institut Berlin. I'm very happy to welcome you here today to today's book presentation of Tamara Hundorova's book, Transit Culture and Postcolonial Trauma, which takes place within our event series, Postcolonialismus, Postcolonial Perspectives on Central and Eastern Europe. At the same time, today's event is also part of the Ukrainian Memory Week, which was opened here at the Institute 2 days ago. My name is Lukas Wieczorek. 2 years ago, I initiated the program Postcolonialismus here in the Institute, which I have been coordinating ever since. I also work here at the Institute as an educational specialist. And over the past 2 years, we have been able to realize several projects related to postcolonial perspectives on Central and Eastern Europe, including a 3-day international conference in October 2024 and a fellowship program in the following year. And with this event series, we aim to continue these discussions and create a space for different perspectives on colonial and post-colonial dynamics in the region. After the opening event in January with Professors Dirk Uffelmann and Paweł Zayas, who presented their book Postcolonial Studies, Einführung in globaler Perspektive, English Introduction in a Global Perspective, and our second event in March where Dr. Agnieszka Pufelska spoke about the question, was Prussia a colonial power? I'm especially pleased that we are continuing this series today with our third event with a perspective on Ukraine. For tonight's discussion, I'm particularly happy to welcome Dr. Tamara Hundorova. I first came across her research while preparing the opening event of this series and found her approach to post and decolonial perspectives on Ukraine especially insightful and enriching. During the reception of the opening event, we had the chance to speak in person, and quickly became clear that presenting her book, Transit Culture and Postcolonial Trauma, within this series would be a wonderful opportunity. I'm therefore very glad that this event has come together and we are all here tonight. Let me also please briefly outline the format of this evening. Tamara Hundorova will begin with the presentation of the book, followed by short comments from Katarina Mischenko and Dr. Matthias Schwarz. After that, we will move into the discussion moderated by my colleague Ewa Jakubowska. And at the end, there will be time for questions from the audience. And before we begin, let me briefly introduce everyone joining us tonight. Tamara Hundorova is an Ukrainian literary critic, culturologist, and member of PEN Ukraine. She's a principal research fellow at the Institute of Literature of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine, and a professor and dean at the Ukrainian Free University, as well as an associate of the Harvard Ukrainian Research Institute. She's currently a fellow of the Wissenschaftskolleg zu Berlin. Katarina Mischenko is an essayist, translator, and co-founder of the publishing house Medusa in Kiev. She has worked as a translator in the field of human rights and was a co-founder of the Journal of Literature, Art, and Social Criticism, ProStory. Her essays have been published in international journals, anthologies, and as a book with the title Ukrainian Night in 2015. In 2023, Out of the Fog of War, The Present of Ukraine, edited with Katarina Rabe, and in 2025, Divided Horizon, The Future of Ukraine, also edited with Katarina Rabe, was published. She was a fellow at Wissenschaftskolleg zu Berlin and is recently working at a Federal Agency for Civic Education, in German, the Bundeszentrale für politische Bildung. Dr. Matthias Schwarz is a senior researcher in the field of Eastern European contemporary literatures, memory studies, and popular culture in a globalized world. He's deputy director of the Leibniz Center for Literary and Cultural Research, ZFL, in Berlin, and co-head of the program area World Literature at the ZFL. Currently, he is leading the Leibniz Collaborative Excellence Research Project, Adjustment and Radicalization, Dynamics in Popular Cultures in Pre-War Eastern Europe. Recent publications include Appropriating History, the Soviet Past in Belarusian, Russian, and Ukrainian Popular Culture, co-edited in 2024, Documentary Aesthetics in the Long 1960s in Eastern Europe and Beyond, co-edited in 2024, and After Memory, World War II in Contemporary Eastern Europe Literatures, who he co-edited in 2021. And finally, Ewa Jakubowska will moderate tonight's discussions. I'm very happy to hand over the moderations to her today, as she brings expertise to today's topic. Let me also briefly introduce her. Ewa Jakubowska is curator at the Pilecki-Institut Berlin, board member of Vice and researcher. Her work focuses on memory studies with particular attention to mnemonic rupture towards Eastern Europe. She curated the international exhibition STUS and has been involved in the Ukrainian Memory Week as well as in theater festivals in Lviv. And she is very well placed to guide us through tonight's discussion. Thank you all again for being here, and I hope you enjoy the evening. Tamara, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lucas, for your introduction, and I'm very glad to be here, and thank you for coming, and it's a pleasure and honor for me to be here and to share with you some of my idea and my thought about my book as well. So I just want to introduce my book, or to share my idea as well, and maybe I can start with a general statement that for me, and I consider my book actually is like a historical and cultural analysis of post-totalitarian cultural experience in Ukraine. And for me, it's not only academic studies as well, but it's also a kind of creating of archive or anthropological analysis as well, that made from inside, from within of this situation. And it seems to me it's very important because it's also connected to myself and my place, my point of view is actually can be subjective as well, but also I am a part of this situation that I am analyzing. So my book, actually, I just show you. My book, this is a book that was published, actually it published on the last day of last year. It was published in 31 December 2025, and it was an amazing gift for me. Is a translation of the book, that first edition of this book, «Transitional культура и постколониальная, симптомы постколониальной травмы», was published in 2013. So, and maybe I can show you, yeah. So you see here the transformation of my book, and it is very important, and I want to show you. It started like a «Transitional культура, симптомы постколониальной травмы». It was a very small books, but very thick, and so it was published in 2013. Then my edited and rewritten book appears in 10th, maybe more than 10 years later. It was in 2024. This was «Transitional культура и постколониальная травма». The title was slightly modified. And then after 1 year, this English translation appears. So Actually, I consider myself this book as a continuation of my previous book. It's that in English translations sounds like Post-Chernobyl Library, Ukrainian Postmodernism of the 1990s. And Ukrainian version of this book was published in 2005. And later it was also translated into English, and there is also another edition of this book. So as a model or the same as well. So you see here first edition, the second edition, which is much rewritten, and also my English translation. So in this book, I actually examine the Chernobyl disaster and nuclear consciousness as a key phenomena that ushered in the postmodern era in Ukraine, and to my mind also on the eastern periphery of Europe as well. What is also very important for me is that later I discovered that German sociologist Ulrich Beck has interpreted Chernobyl exactly as a pivotal event that signals about the emergence of the risk society, a late modern condition, as he described it, in which humanity must meet and must confront the consequences of some technological progress of modernity itself, including environmental threats, nuclear risk, systemic insecurity, and all consequences of technological progress as well. And what is also very important is that actually Ulrich Beck also speaking about some kind of dissociation between the reality and our perception of the reality. And this actually maybe in my mind, I consider as well, it's like the window in the virtuality as well, because it was very powerful, actually, the change, a break in our perception of the world as well, and we stopped believe in our feeling, in our perception of the reality itself, which is also very important if we are talking about postmodernism and postmodern consciousness. So I analyzed, especially in the Post-Chernobyl Library, from the perspective of the changing cultural map and the reclamation of space and freedom in post-Soviet time during the 1990s, and also as the main idea, as the main strategy of this changing of reclamation of reality was carnivalization, and especially maybe the most known famous group, Bubaboo, burlesque, balagan, buffonade. It's very playful. It's very important group. Three authors, Yuri Andrukhovich, Alexander Ivanets, Victor Nebarak, they became a hero in some way of 1990s, and actually in some ways they modernized, they Ukrainized Ukrainian society, and also serve like a mediator in this time of transition in 1990s. The sense of freedom and the joy of nation building, the opportunity to play with canons and narratives, to rewrite it, to fill historical gaps and create alternative histories, to restore privacy destroyed by totalitarianism, the idea of contact, the social contract as well, and the belief in the future all of this was fueled by this carnivalesque spirit of the 1990s, despite the simultaneous reality of poverty, disorientation, and the excess of privatization. Actually, post-Chernobyl trauma, together with post-totalitarian, this pathos or expectation or looking for the future, became the sources that stimulated the emergence of a new era and new literature in 1990s. My book, my first variant of Post-Chernobyl Library in Ukrainian was published in 2005. And actually, when I was finishing this book and I was writing, in my place, as I told you, I always try to describe my place where I am, like a scholar as well, like a witness of this situation, I see that this period of carnivalization, the period of postmodernity is over. Actually, it was the end of the postmodern era. In the second edition, I even added the commentary from the end of the postmodern era. So, as we know, and I do not want to speak more about it, but this era, the end of postmodernism or postmodern, came to an abrupt and traumatic close on September 11, 2001. Also, premonition of its end has long been in the air. So in Ukraine, it seems to me the postmodern era lasted somehow longer, reaching its final climax in the Orange Revolution. This is my view, because I think it was a grand carnival as well, not only revolution, but the groundwork of grand carnivals, the groundwork of which has been laid in the 1990s. It was like a culmination, maybe the end of this big carnivalization that we have. Carnivalization send not only like a joy or entertainment, but it also has a very good, very post-traumatic cultural experiences as well. So at the same time, this Orange Revolution, of course, marking the beginning of the Ukrainian revolution, that second act of it would become the revolution of dignity. Beginning from this Orange Revolution in 2004, the year of revolution started in Ukraine, and this is where actually I started writing about my transit culture. Not writing like a physical work, but to examine actually after finishing my publication of my postcolonial library. The years that follows were much harsher. They brought many disappointments, especially after the Orange Revolution, when the expectation was so high. But nevertheless, we have this year associated with so many elections, Yushchenko, Yanukovych, Poroshenko presidency. What is also very important, it seems to me, that the pressure, the tension and the expectation was so high, but at the same time it was very deep disappointment with the situation in Ukraine. And what is also important for me, and maybe this is one of the very important topic, is actually this we enter in this epoch, in this time when we feel this demand of returning to the reality and to immersion in this present. Because during the 1990s and at the beginning of 21st century, we can see that we always were looking for and were speaking about past. We try to reconsider the past, to create an alternative stories, to create the main narrative, historical narrative of Ukraine. Or we were talking about future, and also carnivalization as well is going out back from reality. It's in a sense of irony, in a sense of playfulness, and so on. But the life itself actually put this question of returning to reality, of examining, of speaking about the reality itself. I mentioned about Beck, and also that he was talking about this estrangement from reality as well. But it's not only in a sense of virtuality, but as well something like an erasing of this reality as well, or not existence in this reality of history of contemporaneity as well. At least for me, it is very important. So while in 1990s had largely been concerned with constructing alternative history, by the early 20s we have the need to see and speak about the presence, and this idea became very urgent. What is also very important that at the time, actually, it was 20 years of independence already, so we have already some history of independence after proclaiming independence. So during this time, the last Soviet generation, as Serhiy Zhadan proclaimed, and he was born in 1974, and he actually called himself the representative of post-Soviet, last Soviet generation, and actually he became a biographer in some way, or chronicler of this generation. So in the period of between two revolutions in Ukraine, actually he had come of age, of course, and he started to writing and has another consciousness as well. And I also, for me, also very important that our expectation in the cultural effect was also connected to generational consciousness, and it became especially very strong. The generation of 1980s, 1990s, generation of 2000, each of the generation started an attempt to identify themselves, to speak about their generation, their place in this society, in this history as well, which is also very important, because one of my idea of my transit culture is intergenerational trauma and a question of generational gap. So the time as well, we can speak about this discussion, debate, which is very, very strong over the post-Soviet and European past, about 22 Ukraine as well, and we as well can speak about post-memory as well, because we have already the generation that was born during the independence. So it was very important to note that transit culture was published firstly in 2013, before Euromaidan. And at the time, nobody knows that we have a new Maidan, and at least I didn't know. And the time this word trauma was absent from the public discourse. And the term itself entered public discourse about 6 months after when the Maidan happened, and after a tragic event on the Maidan and Holy Hundreds and the outbreak of Russian-Ukrainian war. So I try, in my first edition, I tried to speak large about postcolonial. I was talking about 19th century, 20th century, and try to formulate my idea of the role of trauma in history, in Ukrainian history especially. But later, actually, maybe with the beginning of this full-scale aggression, I have a feeling, and I realized that I needed to revise transit culture and reconsider from a slightly different perspective. So I felt that some things needed to be added and also other removed. I therefore cut nearly a third of the first edition. It's much shorter than my first book. And especially with the historical context, because I deliberately shifted the focus towards the present, towards the beginning of 20th century, centered the revised version around several key issues. Post-memory, construction of history, intergenerational trauma in the other Europe, and Chornobyl as well, Chornobyl catastrophism, and pop culture. To my mind, this is like a trauma punct of the situation, which play significant role in developing cultural and social situation, and also kind of evolution of our consciousness at that time. It also became clear for me that I was essentially describing in this book a kind of transition from the post-colonial to the colonial era, because especially the revolution of dignity, to my mind, actually was a deliberately revolution that has that very strong anti-social, anti-communist idea as well. Because this is of course maybe I am subjective my point of view, but I would to say that it seems to me that the main narratives, the main canon, and some ideologies as well of the Soviet time are still not deconstructed in Ukraine, and this is very important when we are talking about decolonization and decommunization as well. So, but it seems to me that this period actually started beginning with the revolution of dignity. So, and so this shift became evident in some way. Postcolonialism largely coincide with postmodernism, and we have a short discussion with Marko Pavlyushin because he strictly identified postmodernism with postcolonialism, but I also see some anti-colonial movement and anti-colonial idea inside of Ukrainian postmodernism as well, because it's very important that it has this. It's not was so playful, so ironic. Nevertheless, it also have this kind of a strange and anti-colonial criticism. So, but the colonization incorporates largely this anti-colonial strategy and sensibility. So I must confess that now I am working, and actually now it is translated into English, my third book that will be continuation of my transit culture. It will be concentrated on the idea, the problems of provincialization, of Eurocentrism, Occidentalism, and immigration as well. So it's actually cover this period after 2014, and this is maybe one of explanation why I do not want to go to the contemporary time when we are talking about transit culture. So what is presenting this okay, what I want to take, okay. Why did I choose this transit culture? It is also, of course, a very important question. Some word transit, the term transit is associated above, first of all, with the concept of transition, of transformation, or initiation as well. The rite de passage, Victor Turner may be the example of this understanding. And we can speak as well, generally understand transit as a movement from one state to another state, or as reaching some point of destination as well. And in the first version of my book, actually, I conceived it as like transition also that moves from something to something else. So it was a more chronological aspect that I was interested in. This movement from the Soviet past toward a new liberal. Market, democratic, European integrated future. So we all believe that it will happen very soon. But as we know, the future is not easy to get, this future. So my book actually has this historical aspect, and I want, because it seems to me we need now to understand the point that preceded our contemporary situation in full-scale aggression, and it's to analyze, to see this process that maybe can explain something that we that show these sources or reason of contemporary war. So for me as well, and it became more clear and clear, and I can confess it, even now I'm thinking about this notion of transit culture, because I see it not only a chronological notion or term, but I see it like some kind of specific modus of cultural practices, as it also has this anti-traumatic aspect, some kind of healing as well, and also this being inside of this present situation of the time. From this point of view, transit culture does not need to go from something to the end as well, yeah, because it is not the main idea. Its idea is to live inside of this period, yeah, to feel and to react to all different conflicts, to different situations, and which were very traumatic at that time. And for me, it's literature, and especially, actually, I was speaking about mostly about literature. Literature also plays a role of this cultural practices as well, because it fixes some this trauma point and try to answer to them. So one of my idea is that this transit culture analyzes and reflects culture process from the standpoint of Jetztzeit, or time, or now time, rather than empty linear time. And I use here Walter Benjamin sense that when he opposes this empty time to the time of contemporary, of presence, yeah, so is the transit culture in this sense is a perspective of not a historian as well, but also anthropology of culture as well. So maybe I have to short something. Okay. About decolonial and it's already yeah, it's some I analyze, especially in my book, this very important for me, transgenerational trauma, post-memory, the construction of Europe from the position of the other, and I analyze how Andrzej Stasiuk and Andruchowicz, their strategy of speaking about their own place and their connection to Europe, the construction of historical narrative that built upon rupture in memory, generation, and family history in Oksana Zabuzhko Muzej Покинутих Секретів, because it seems to me it is very interesting, actually, form of rewriting history, but not from point of view of alternative history, but from history like a continuation of some generation of some connection in reconstruction from the gap as well, and on the other one hand, and represented like a museum, but also it is clear understanding that history, it can be like a file that can be changed, erased, or substituted as well. So, and it is also very, very important aspect of talking about history from the perspective of post-memory as well. And the second and the next aspect is the body, because one of the main hero, I would say, is the body, this history that goes through the body, and it also has a kind of revelation that appears in a magic way. All of this character, all of this strategy actually has some connection to decoloniality as well. But I do not want to go deeply, because I will be talking later much more about this. I speak about this construction history, construction Europe as well, about catastrophes, because it seems to me that Chernobyl became is very deep trauma even today, and especially this 40 years anniversary of Chernobyl. We all, it seems to me, understand how deeply this trauma is, how has it affected our society and the people as well. And on the other hand, but on the other hand, it became his history, and I was especially impressed by appearance of stories. The stories, personal stories, was so. It's actually when it signifies something, a new understanding of this historical event, because we're creating stories about it. So we are strange about it, and it became the part of our biography, of our family stories, and family of our general Ukrainian situation. And also, I also discuss here in my book such phenomenon as pop culture, because it seems to me we usually avoid to speak with it, but the role of pop culture in constructing this cultural consciousness, and especially this period of transition, is very significant. And I especially speak about Verka Serduchka that play a very important role, it seems to me, in this period of transition, in signifying some kind of mediator or trickster between the provinces and the center, between different classes, and plays the role of the mother in some way of the nation. So I want to maybe to end at the end that transit culture is a phenomenon of the new millennium, and for me, in a time when, as Marianne Hirsch has observed, the genocide and catastrophes are proliferating so rapidly that the traditional historical archive is no longer capable of containing or explaining the bodily, psychic, and affective impact of trauma and its aftermath, nor the ways in which one trauma can recall or reactivate or affect of other trauma. Thank you. And I just want to show, just give some. I'm sorry, yeah, it's very short. I give to some visual effect as well. So I show you this book and this book, but also Chernobyl. I was speaking about Chernobyl, and Bubabu, of course, is we all love all this Tritsia, Sveta Tritsia, and this Andruchovich, Nebarak, and Irvanets. We also have this Orange Revolution. It's actually very powerful, and this is beginning in some way when Ukraine started to go out of the post-Soviet space, because before that we all was a part of this very amorphic unity that was associated with post-Soviet space. And he actually revolution in dignity, which much more tragic, much more important, and started new. This Andruchovich and Serhiy Zhadan that represent very powerful, represent also different localities as well, and identity, and also in contact with each other. It seems to me it's a very important figure of this period. And also Oksana Zabuzhko and the Museum Abandoned Secret. And I also was talking about Lina Kostenko, whose work "Записки українського сумасшедшого" was criticized very hard as well. But to my mind, it also a symptom something, and the symptom actually this is a crisis of шестидесятництва in some way. And it seems to me this book actually symbolizes this idea. And we also have a Serduchka, but I do not know, maybe. Yeah, maybe you can, yeah, just to finish this.
So this is just impression of Verka Serduchka, what Tamara was talking about. I saw it yesterday the first time, and I was really impressed, and I think it's really worth seeing it. It's just 30 seconds, so we won't watch more of it. So, I think it's okay. Thank you, Marek. Let's continue with Dr. Matthias Schwarz. The floor is yours.
Shall we now sit all together, or
Do you want to comment here, or do you want to sit here and comment there first?
you prefer to sit up?
I would like to see it. You want to sit here, or do you want? Then I will sit in there.
Okay, thank you very much for this wonderful presentation, and I'm extremely honored and excited also to be here as a commentator, because really this book in this 2013 edition was the first book I read, and I bought it, I looked in it in February 2014, and we were then working on a bigger project on Central East and Eastern European youth cultures, and we looked about something about Ukraine, and then I read it, and there's one chapter you haven't mentioned is on the loser, and you conceptualize the loser as a very typical, you mentioned Zhadan, of this first socialist, post-socialist generation who were born still in socialist Soviet times, but grew up then in disorientation. And in contrast to this 1960 generation who had still all these hopes and illusion of really transforming the society into a democratic and progressive capitalist functioning democracy, and they are totally disillusioned. And because we're here in the Pilecki-Institut in Poland, we had a similar phenomenon. It was there called Generation Nothing, and the most prominent writer who described this generation was then Dorota Masłowska in her first novels. So I was extremely excited and fascinated in finding you, and you contributed then also a wonderful article on the loser in Ukrainian literature and the symptom of the time. But what I want to highlight here, and it became clear already in your presentation, that you are not only developing new views, new concepts of understanding Ukrainian literature, but and not only in this book, you mentioned already your first the book Post-Chornobyl Library from 2005, but I want to mention also the book Kitsch and Literature Transvestis from 2018, because there's a lot of popular culture in it, and you start there with Verduchka also. And they not only open up new perspectives to Ukrainian literature, but what impressed me most was how you brought Western and global theoretical approaches, world literature and culture study perspectives into dialogue with Ukrainian literature. Culture thereby, in a way, because we have now this discussion, we have to decentralize Western, develop theories, West planning and so on, reconceptualizing our understanding of culture. And actually, you did this. And for me, you were the first one I found really who took all this Western theory, all this discussion, that not only Western theory, you start your book, or not started, but it's in the beginning, also the discussions with Alexander Etkind and Mark Lipovetsky about this internal decolonization, colonization. So bringing Ukrainian discourses, literature into dialogue with all these concepts and really then recalibrating them, rethinking them and adapting them to case, and also going the other way around, making the example of the Ukrainian literature to challenging Western notions. And you mentioned already how you conceptualized Chornobyl, really thinking it's not only just the end of Soviet modernity, but we can see it in a broader sense of a crisis and the end of modernity and this sort of beginning of specific postmodern aesthetics, as you did in your fortune. And I think that's a huge achievement. So in a way, reading now this edition, and you mentioned it, you shortened it sufficiently. You left out, for instance, there's a big chapter about Yulia Tymoshenko, and so you shortened all these things. It's in a way also going, it's a double reading. It's really rereading it nowadays, but it really is a document also of your great achievement, what you brought in for, especially then for Ukrainian public or people who knew Ukrainian then, but it resonates nowadays with this English editions of these two books, Post-Chornobyl Library and Transit Culture, also known in the global sense. And so it's now the chance for a greater public also to go into Ukrainian culture, and there's very much already in it what now is so big in discussion about this decentralizing. And maybe with this, I maybe start a question. You mentioned it already, how you reworked it and what you did, but I would be extremely interesting how it is. You have written a book 10 years ago, and then, or more than 10 years later, then rewriting it from a completely different perspective, because you said it is written before Maidan. It's before the full scale, long ago. It's after this disillusionment, with the Orange Revolution in a way. And you mentioned Lina Kostenko and this novel, Notes of an Ukrainian Madman, which ends with this all this hope also with evolution, and it was critical ambivalences. But now, how it is now for you? And then the second question would be also, you mentioned it also shortly, but maybe you could say a little bit more, because now we in the Western world as literary scholars and literary studies in a way are in a crisis because no one reads anymore, and even the students don't read whole novels, and we have all this discussion also, this crisis of literary studies and the new social media. So other media become much more important and analyzed. TV series are now the big narratives to transport it. Maybe you could say a little bit more what you see as a specific abilities or potentialities of literature in these, especially dealing with your key terms like trauma and this re-traumatization of the have it changed it, or what would be your point? Maybe we start with these two questions.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you, Maidans. It was first of all, I would like to thank you so much for being here and for when I got your letter and you invited me to take part in this project, in this book about, and to speak about loser. Actually, you know, I have to confess that maybe only one of all my reader who mentioned me about loser. Can you imagine it? In Ukraine, nobody pay attention to this idea. Also, I was talking about the archetype character of this loser as well. So it's a pleasure to be here with you. When I think that I want to rewrite and to republish my book, first of all in Ukrainian, because you know the publishing house that where my first edition was published is Granity. It was actually at the end of their activity, and my book was never presented anywhere on festival or presentation as well. It was absolutely unknown, and I have many books behind my working table, and then I decided, okay, I have to give some people who can be interested in this book. So on the one hand, I feel, and some people also asked me about possibility to get this book, but this was not the main reason why I started writing. As I told you, I just realized that this is also already the history as well. So, and I want to give this understanding of this period. But at the same time, I have a feeling that that I have to speak, and I have a right to speak maybe about something very important, because Euromaidan, it seems to me, a revolution of dignity, actually like give a light back to the previous period. It gives us sense what is the period was about, what is the main idea of this period as well. Because when I was publishing in 2013, I didn't realize what it means for me. But now maybe of course we all thinking teleological and bringing some idea to our narratives as well. And I confess that I am also maybe doing the same. But nevertheless, for me it was also important. And but I also add, actually, the first article was about Maidan, because Euromaidan was very important, and I was talking about social performance as well, because some people, and especially Russian critics, and they speak about Maidan, this is carnival or something like this. It's playful, as well, not very serious, but actually it was a form of for me, it was has a very hybrid character. It was, on the one hand, it was a sacral. It was like a renovation of the Zaporizhzhia Sich, Kazaki, inside of Maidan Nezalezhность. But it was also in carnival, and how it changed, because we have different etape actually of developing this atmosphere, a character of Maidan as well. So for me, it was actually like an open of my book, and something that end actually that bring light and the idea and the meaning to what I will be talking after that. And I also change my chapter on Zhadan. In first edition, I was interested in Zhadan and in his Voroshilovgrad. It seems to me it's very important. The text that actually that symbolize kind of a break with the Soviet time, and it's montage also, it's a collection also, museification as well, it's a relic. You know, for instance, that Andruchovich, when he's talking about this Austro-Hungarian nostalgia, he also collected some relics of this time that exist even today in Galicia, in his family history as well. So it seems to me Zhadan was making similar, because he started to collect this dead or empty sign of empire, of Russian empire, and he actually created like a collection of something that belongs to the former era. So, and for me, this like a faraway to the Soviet Union became more substantial than before, when I was talking about Donbass as a zone of transition, and I was talking mostly about it. And at the end of my book, I give also essay, which very personal essay, and actually it symbolized my place here, because I was talking from the position of transit. I talking about my refugee experience, and I remember that I came to Munich in the beginning of March together with my grandson, and actually I was writing and I'm interested in post-war situation, and I was writing, and I am writing about Shevelyov and the others. Well, and finally, I feel that I'm going back. I am inside of history that was happened after the Second War. It's like was. Doubling of my time. So this is how I work with this idea. And regarding the role of literature, and especially now I see that in Ukraine, for instance, literature became not only literature, it became also свідчення and especially Drone, he's talking about свідчення, and even more, his book Hemingway не знав, Нічого не знаю. Yeah. So it's, you know, this is a like challenge to literature as well, you know, because literature and Hemingway, who was famous for his work and novels about war as well, is a classic of it. But Arthur Dron, he says that Hemingway didn't know about it yet. So it's actually the challenge is how can we speak about such a very dramatic, very situation like contemporary war as well. And also it seems to me it's in so many people started writing, because writing became, literature became like a healing, like a therapy as well. And also to write spohady, to write a diary, to fix this moment as well, to collect, to make these materials for somebody, because it's actually like creating history, or наполняющий историю, yeah, so these materials as well. What is also not very, I would say, not without any complication as well, because I know that somebody even opposed to literature, and for instance, Artem Chapai, Народжені для війни, was strongly criticized for being literature. That literature was written about war as well. So it's like a very interesting collision when we are talking about the role of literature in contemporary situation of war.
I also want to start with praising Tamara, like Matthias. It's an honor for me to be here. First of all, I'm really happy to speak about Ukrainian culture, also in some longer time historical perspective, not about current events, war, and promoting support for Ukraine, but going deeper into our context. And the name of Tamara Gundorova was like an iconic name for us at our university, where we were also analyzing literature by means of reading of Western theory. So it was also my way to fall in love with literature, and and then I was working at the university for some time, but then it was over. And then I went to a bigger world of culture, Ukrainian arts, social criticism, leftist activism, etc. I'm telling you about it not only, or not because I want to introduce myself somehow, but I think it's quite symptomatic for this generation who grew up and developed itself exactly at this time, between two revolutions. And I think it's an interesting transformation. Now I'm thinking about that we are always dealing, and we can see it in your book, with some big disruptions, which are always changing our perspective on the past. And for me, it was really like a document of some time, of some period, which is already completely lost. Also the way of thinking, about our past, about the Soviet legacy. I think it's changed really radically after Maidan, and when the decommunization process started. And now, after the full-scale invasion, it is another shift, another change. And that's why also in the sense of the perception of our culture and of our way of dealing with the traumatic past, yeah, this is a document about how we were thinking about it and how we were working with it. But for me, it was really insightful that this, working through the Soviet legacy was always an issue. It's not something new. It's not something which appeared only now. It was always the topic. I even remember once I was in a minibus with Yuri Andrukhovich in year 2016 in Marshrutka, and some not very good Russian pop music was like playing there, and I thought, my goodness, how many years should, how to say, past that we don't hear this anymore. And Andrukhovich told me, you know, Katya, I'm asking me this question for the last 20 years. And then, and then I understood that there is some continuity of the question we are asking ourselves and of the strategies, we are dealing with it. And for example, Serduchka, I was also thinking about your perception of Serduchka, and this is this carnivalesque figure who offers us some way of dealing with traumatic experience. But what is interesting about this song and this European performance of Serduchka, that she is using German words. And I know it very good from my childhood, from our everyday culture, that these minimalistic interventions of German language were always connected with war, of course. We all told to each other, kids, Hände hoch, or some kind of this stuff. And I think probably it's not by occasion that she's using this like really militaristic BDSM culture, which is also probably somehow connected to the culture in Berlin, making this like minimal traces of this post-war experience, which is still, it's probably not properly articulated at that times, but it's still somehow, through the language is coming up. And it was like just my idea now when I saw this performance. Another thing I wanted to say, if Matthias pointed this figure of loser, for me really insightful was the figure of migrant. You are using this in very different contexts, like for Andrukhovich it was some imaginative figure connected with the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. But Andrukhovich has also a very funny essay, Place of Meeting Hermashka, when he is describing Ukrainian migrants going from Germany to Western Ukraine or vice versa by bus, and what they're discussing, etc. I think it's really funny. And the other person is Zhadan, who is whose migrants are people from completely different contexts. But in general, especially from the today's perspective, and also from the perspective of your epilogue, of your text about Munich and this sudden internal connection with the Ukrainian post-war diaspora in Munich and this place, etc. I think that it's very interesting to see or to observe the transformation of this migrant figure. And I think this book is also like an evidence that this is some existential state of being. It's not just about geographical movement, it's of course also important, but see, when you are living through different periods of time, and we can say that we migrated from the Soviet Union into independent Ukraine, and also these disruptions, these changes of like everything. It's this permanent transit which makes us somehow to permanent migrants, or those who are looking for their roots, who are creating them and analyzing the loss of some of them. And probably it's a permanent state. And I think also, what I also wanted to say, that this way of thinking, which is probably still present in this period between two revolutions, that we are moving somewhere. Yeah, this classical, like post-Berlin Wall perception of the transit. We are moving from the socialist, from the Soviet to liberal democracy. Now we see it's like a nonsense. Yeah, it never existed this way, which was somehow programmed for us. It was my expectation as well, I think till Maidan, more or less, that we are developing, we are moving towards some better future. Democracy goes without saying. Capitalism, okay, not very happy, but goes without saying. It was not doubted, yeah? And then you see, you cannot predict in which country you will live, under which regime. At the same time, this disappearance of some programmed way is liberating, and you can take the responsibility and gain some other political subjectivity, and believe that your imagination can create your future, some other world, some other way of living together. But I think it's a very hard lesson. And it was also like some months maybe before Maidan, my colleagues and we published an essay by Judith Butler, who was writing about some uprising or protest of Latino migrants. And she was writing about performativity and about reinvention of the voice through protest singing, etc. And I remember that I was going to Maidan and looking at it from this perspective of performativity and of the, how you can create some other way of political subjectivity, or even how can you fail in creating it. So that were probably all my thoughts, and I wanted to ask you many questions, but probably I don't know if you can elaborate a lot, maybe from your next book you've already announced to us. Where is Europe in all these journeys and post-traumatic reflections of our writers, of our artists, etc.? How did this topos change? It's another book. Yeah. Because we always have like Moscow, this long Moscoviada, but Europe is also always there, actually, yeah.
Thank you, Katya, so much, and especially for your personal feeling and thought that especially connected to this period. Because I was thinking I was writing more abstractly and more generally, but it is very interesting what you said. Maybe I combined to your question with the idea about migration. Actually, for instance, when we look at the Ukrainian situation, Ukrainian history, Ukrainian literature, culture, but also the life itself, we see how Ukraine changed in a sense of openness to the world as well. And especially even in the 90s, this character of bohemian, of teenager, of migration became so important. And in some way, when I was talking about loser, I was talking about the generation that doesn't want to be adult. That it's kind of escapism, non-conformism as well, because this generation, new generation that came at the beginning of 2000, they feel not safe. They you know, this slogan, the "Мати батьківщина тебе захистить," your mother will save you, your country will save you. But Sashko Ushkalov actually speaks about how it can be a slogan in some reklama and for reklama of piva, for instance, yeah, as well. So we see how this slogan that has some meaning for many generations, and how they lose their meaning. So actually, this situation actually produced this character of migrant who was always inside of on the waste somewhere. And maybe most characteristic is for me is Serhiy Zhadan, Big Mac. I like it especially this book, and unfortunately, when I asked it Zhadan, that I said, you know, I see this like a novel, and why did you not write the novel and only the stories that collected in this collection, Big Mac? He said actually it should be a novel, but it was not written. But this situation is this character was traveling actually around Europe, around Germany as well, and he met different, and he actually feels this solidarity with everybody who is on the way, who is a migration. So it's absolutely another Europe as well, which is also very important. And when you're talking about this opening, this idea of traveling, of recreation, of openness to the world as well, it also means not only changing of our situation, our identity, but it's also changing the Europe itself. And this question also about decolonization, because one of the idea of decolonization, when we're talking about some theories as well, is actually critics of Eurocentrism. Critics of this very universal character of narratives, of vision of Europe. And Daipesh Chakraborty speaks about the different Europe, very different when we fantasize, when we create, different in different time as well, different countries as well, different region as well. So it's multi-phase, multi-dimensional image of the Europe itself. So, and Ukraine actually also adding some meaning to this understanding. And actually in my book that I was talking, I speak about the idea of crisis of Europe and after the Second World War, and especially how in the P camp, Ukrainian intellectual started to discussing about the other Europe, about the Europe that also can take this like a margin of Europe, that not was like a core of Europe, like Ukraine, like a borderland as well. So it's very, very important how we talk about contemporary time, but nevertheless we also have this kind of understanding of the past as well. So, and in sense of migration, it seems to me it's very important, the book that was written, especially even at that period when I'm talking. This is Tanya Malarchuk, it is Yevgenia Kononenko, Snedanko. Many of them was talking about travel to Europe, yeah, and especially it was a woman, it was the female story, a female romance of migrant and romance became so popular at that time. And classical text for me is a history of tractor in Ukrainian. It seems to me it's maybe one of the emblem of this meeting of Ukraine with the other, with Europe, and which has their own trauma as well. And now, especially, I cannot avoid speaking about the contemporary situation when so many people, the war throughout beyond the border of Ukraine, and they live in different country, in different situation, and how this what kind of experience they have, how they integrate, and how it's traumatic, this experience as well. Yeah, and Oksana, it seems to me, she was writing about this money as well. So I see actually this is very very big potential for developing Ukrainian literature as well. And I want to read, and I am expect that it will something we will have something very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's definitely deserved round of applause, and I feel myself as a transitional moderator because kind of like we should proceed to the question, but you know, I still will allow myself to ask a couple questions, but not couple, few. So actually, like there's a couple angles from which I would like to come in, but sitting in the part of Ukrainian Remembrance Week and speaking about the Europe, and I would like to quote what you said in your keynote introductionally, this notion of break of our perception of the world, but I would like to refer the break the world perception of us, and then come into this definition which you said that after Maidan, revolution of dignity is happening, this transition from post-colonial to decolonial era. But now, and I can see that it's coming with the connection of the Russian colonialism happening through the century and also during the Soviet era. But how does it work toward and with Europe, with knowledge of Europe about us, this Mignolo-colonial matrix of power, right, which also has a very long tradition of portraying Ukrainian literature or Ukrainian history. So it would be, I probably will stop here. So this definition, and let's maybe put this transition of post-coloniality to the colonial era, not as the connection with the Russian imperialism, but to Europe, toward Western.
Yeah. It's a very serious question. Thank you so much. And yeah, I do not know if I can answer fully or not fully, but even I try. You know, I have such a vision, for instance, when I was thinking about post-colonial and decolonial situation and the difference between them. And I recall Moscoviat by Andruchovich, which it seems to me a very archetypal text, post-colonial text about the traveling, this travelogue of Ukrainian post-colonial subject to the center of empire, to metropolis, to Moscow, to the empire that was dying, and actually it's very grotesque and ironic voyage of Ukrainian who feel actually their own power, and he can, in some way, I call it raping of empire, of this or dying empire, how he deals, how we work, Andruchovich, I mean, with language as well, with Russian language, how he tried to demonstrate something, this monstrosity of this structure as well. But at the same time, it was this hero has his own shadow, Sashko, who is a KGBist as well. So it's this Ukrainian, this post-colonial subject as well, has own shadow as well. It's shadow that is this Soviet time, this Soviet history that was not that was so also effective, and it's in some such of the other way. But when I'm thinking about decolonization, I'm thinking about Shahed in Moscow. This is a very, very, very obvious demonstration of different strategy of postmodernity and of post-coloniality and decoloniality as well. It seems to me it is very important. The notion of decolonization became maybe the most popular in contemporary Ukraine. And we can find everywhere. But in some way, it seems to me the understanding of this idea is not so precise, I would say. Decolonization, we have at least two understandings. One of that is more traditional. Decolonization is started together with the process of decolonization, and especially in the middle of 20th century. And it was a linguistic decolonization and cultural and political, economic as well. And the other understanding of decolonization, this is decolonization of decoloniality. This is about the production of knowledge as well. And we are talking about decolonization of Russian studies, of humanities as well. So we are talking about the place of different country in creating this knowledge that was associated with European and Eurocentrism. So I just describe very shortly and very large this notion of decoloniality, and what especially very important, it seems to me, is that this decolonization has an anti-colonial idea, anti-colonial ideology as well. And we see now in Ukraine especially how does it work? But it works in some way, it seems to me, does not effectively. We are talking about cancellation, we are talking about decolonization, about topographic, changing of topography, for instance, changing of canon, which is all very productive. But at the same time, we don't understand that it's needs to go more deeply to deconstruct this idea or imperial narratives as well. So for me, it's actually the question. And some protesters even say that we are talking about decolonization of food, decolonization of clothes as well. But we lost in some way the main idea of opposing, of breaking with empire, and this fighting that is violence. I can refer to Franz Fanon, who is a famous figure, especially for decolonization, who speaks that decolonization is always a violence against the colonizer as well. So it's a very complicated question when we are talking about this situation in Ukraine, and especially when we are talking about, maybe this a little bit aside, but decolonization is also sometimes is connected with decommunization, but it seems to me it's so hard for us to analyze, for instance, the Soviet past, the Soviet literature, for instance, and some say that we have to erase from our literary canon even Tchena, yes, because he was a Soviet author as well. I do not mention Russophone authors or even Gogol as well, but Tchena, or for instance, recently, this book by Andrushenko about Viktor Petrov. It's amazing information who was about Viktor Petrov Domontovich, who was an agent of KGB, and it's it's fantastic book because it show you and monstrosity actually this authors whom we started to celebrate beginning of 20th, starting from 1990s as the biggest Ukrainian modernist authors, and actually he's a very interesting author as well. But how we can speak? What do we have some methodology of speaking as well? Do we need to do something like denazification that was after the Second World, or how we can work with this experience? It's so complicated questions that it seems to me we have to look for the answer as well, but it's not so easy. So I just want to say that sometimes this big idea and very serious, like decolonization as well, but has also their own pastke, how to say here?
Traps.
Traps, yes.
Yes, thank you. And also because speaking also from position as a migrant, in the same time thinking about the transition, by the way, it would be the last question. So please prepare your questions. And in this moment of transition, what is happening is about our privacy and about our body, and coming to the Ukrainian perception, which you also mentioned, and I'm quoting you, the privacy destroyed by a totalitarian regime. So this notion of not having this privacy, not having these homes, and in transition, the thing which, or the notion which you call the home is not anymore there when you are transitioning. And in this new home, you're still not feeling and will never feel as in this previous home. This notion of being lost in between, kind of like forever, and trying to recreate this. And with this coming also to this privacy, having this new image of the body, of the own body, and how through the literature it's coming closer and closer, and to not talk only about the authors, which is in the books, but also to talk, for example, about Droň and his Hemingway Knows Nothing, referring, of course, to Hemingway's experience in the war times. How does the body transitioning in this notion of not having home, not getting to the home, and not having actually the point where we come in as we are developing or we are not developing? Yes.
It's also very interesting question. When we are talking about symptom in my first edition, I use this term symptom, and I refer to psychoanalytical aspect of understanding of symptom that speaks about trauma, which is safe in some way, yeah. And the body, of course, the body is this very often this entity, that mark trauma in a sense of transformation or somatic or sickness as well. And in my book, I'm talking about the sick body, which for me is a symptom of post-totalitarian sickness, I would say. I analyze many different authors, especially from the generation of 2000, who was talking about the sickness, about it's like chronic sickness. It's not physiological even. It is also psychological image, in the sense of psychoanalysis, for instance, is a symptom of trauma. So for me, it's a very interesting aspect when we are talking about trauma, and in many Ukrainian texts of this period, we can find actually this working with trauma. But I want to also refer to Amadoka by Sofia Andruchovich, who is talking about trauma, or for instance, Rafeyenko, who in Monday Green is also talking about trauma as well. So, and especially in the situation of war, it seems to me this is a question about how contemporary imperial war, how it's actualized or put aside this trauma of post-totalitarian trauma as well. And it seems to me, in some way, it's like community, or bringing the differences, change of trauma that former and contemporary as well, it became so awful. But actually, Sofia Andruchovich, it seems to me, also make very important opening or discovering when she's talking about trauma of memory as well, of losing of memory. And now, you know, in situation of contemporary war, full-scale aggression, when we see so many young people, male and female, who was injured, and for instance, when I was in Kiev and I saw very good beautiful body, young body of young male as well, but was injured in some way, on this some way. It's actually changed our understanding. Our you know, Kristeva had this notion object. It seems to have, yeah, object. Yeah. So sometimes we avoiding to look at something that is not beautiful, because we also look something beautiful. But war especially, and changing our attitude to the body as well, to injured body as well, and also Paralympic game, Olympiad as well, and bringing and showing this that you have to see how the body can be injured, how body is fragile as well. Yeah, and the war is so awful. So it seems to me that literature and culture and visual arts as well, they all work with body, and especially now in the situation of war, where our attitude toward body as well changed so significantly.
Thank you. So the body in this transition becoming a new home for us. So I open in the floor for the questions. So please, there is the hand. Thank you. I see 1, 2, 3.
Yes, my question is related to the notion of body. It was actually also my question, but I would like to put a bit gendered category in this question. And during the Soviet time, we know that we didn't have a lot of female writers, and this crisis of 60s with the last representation of Lina Kostenko. And she was also criticized for not talking about body or not describing the body. And I'm writing now my master's thesis, and there I claim that that's a new tendency for female writers to come back to the body and to explore it through the body, deconstruct it through the body, and actually reconfigure a new type of body that emerged in these fissures of new times. So, yeah, my question is, from the feminist perspective, or what did feminist movement or female took from this new reality of independence, of transition in literature field? And what happened with the female body, especially? Did it, because in my master's thesis, I claim that female writers use it actually as an instrument to reclaim their liberation and to reclaim their voice. What do you think about it?
Wonderful question. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah, of course, in the sense of feminism and the contemporary Ukrainian authors who speak about the body. Of course, I cannot mention Zabuzhko, Polowі дослідження. She was maybe the first who started talking about woman body, and you know, this narcissism when this heroine just look at some, this is, and she look at her own body as well. It's actually like iconic image of this body that was open finally, and can look at himself as well, not only objectify, like object something from the male gaze, yes, but also how she feel itself, and also existence inside of a body, which also became very, very important. I also, and Haska Shiyan and the others as well, they were also speaking about body. And I also want to mention Katananhe, about Sofia Andruchovich, who's very, very, and this is also a kind of twist, a kind of break and intervention, introduction, a new aspect. This is a body of the old woman as well. You know, usually we have the character, the young girl or female, but now she started talking about a different aspect of became adult as well, and female adult, female body as well, and also the construction, this idea of beautiful body that we have in reclama, in everything. So it's like a fetish that was created by industry of beauty, I would say. And it seems to me in the post-Soviet time we have very strong actually this when you see the young girl who all started and to be like a star, and it was like a provincialization on one hand, and also the attempt to follow this some kind of superstar images. So I like very much this idea to work with body and female body, and actually it's you know, it's very important also feminist idea of reclaiming your own body. You have your right to have your body and to speak about your body as well. And I also would like to mention, because last time I was also rewriting my book on Kobylyanska, and I like so much this author, and especially in her diary, which is absolutely fantastic. And actually, Kobylyanska was the first Ukrainian author, so also woman feminist authors, who started talking about her female as well, about her body as well, about sexuality, female sexuality as well. And it was the end of 19th century, you know, it's fantastic, yeah.
Thank you very much to Pilecki-Institut and to everybody for bringing Pani Tamara to us. It's my first time I see you personally, but I met the book in 2005 when I was writing my bachelor work back then, just after the Maidan, and we were all the students in different cities in Ukraine, and trying to bring our own agency and to take our own agency. And everything that is written in your books is actually the substrate, the Chernozem, which actually, the black soil of Ukraine, which actually made the next generation to grow. And as you just said that that this book for you became the reason to rewrite it, because you saw the background that now makes the story more clear. I would probably argue as well that this exactly book and Chernobyl, Post-Chernobylska Biblioteka as well, are also the substrate to explain to Europe, to your question, right? What is dvuhtysichniki? What is the generation of 2000s? And this is completely moving to your question. It's totally the generation of agency. And the 2000s are now my age, are now fighting. Andrei Lyubka is fighting, Czech is fighting, Dron is fighting, Yarina Chernoguz, Pavlo Kazarin. So this is all the generation which is now 40s, but it was the 2000s which were fighting already the 2004 and then 2013. And I guess what you have done would be the key to the Europeans to understand where did this generation come from and why do we have this agency. And for which I want to thank you, of course. When I was writing my bachelor studies and master studies, we were deconstructing the language. So I was looking at transcriptions, the way how the language is being distorted in every and which way, the neologism, the slangs and everything in Ukrainian literature, contemporary literature of 2000s. And I want to maybe finalize this with the question of trauma, post-colonial trauma. If we're talking in terms of traumatic, PTSD is not only, so we might probably have this post-colonial trauma disorder, but there is only 12% of people who have PTSD in psychological way, and there is around 25% of people who have the post-traumatic growth. I would really love to read your book about post-colonial trauma growth.
Yes, that was a question.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you. You know, I like it especially this what you told and remind about this agency, and especially the generation of 2000. Actually, for me, it's one of the text that actually speaks about it is Internat by Serhiy Zhadan, because this one of his I have an article about teenager, bohemist, teenager, and leader, providnik. I don't know. Guide. So, and I was, and this, especially in the 90s, in the beginnings, only beginning 2000, actually it was the main hero was a teenager, and who lost their connection with the past, and they see how their parents cannot help them because they lost their jobs, they have no authority as well. The place of the father was lost at that time, and actually one of the authors who created and who developed this idea was Serhiy Zhadan. But in Internat and even in Voroshilovgrad, he started analyze how this the changing, the transformation of teenager into the adult and responsible person as well. And in Internat, for instance, he show how this generation already take the role of and know what side how they became responsible for their own territory, because the novel of Voroshilovgrad is actually about вростання в свою землю, belonging to this place. This is not migration, because before that it was a migration. You have to go out. You don't want to put the roots some. So, but now we have this feeling of soil, of земля. And recently I read something Nora of I forgot his name is yeah. So you know, but in the war, contemporary war, there are so many people, you know, live inside of Nora or inside of shelter, tranchée, in some sense. Trenches, yes, in some trenches. You know, it's belonging also to this ground. So, and actually, Andruchovich gives the two characters, you know, this character of Pasha and Sasha. And at the end of Internat, maybe you notice is he gives voice not to Pasha, actually, who who has to decide what side he is staying. Yeah, but he gives voice to Sasha, to his nephew, which and he knows from the beginning на якому боці він є і хто кого веде. It's very interesting how Zhadan actually circle this idea of generation. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, it's a good sign when the questions are following and flying, and I feel the pressure from my back, and I'm so sorry to say, but it's a bad tone to hold you on these seats for 2 hours. That's why, unfortunately, we are closing the questions public one, but I think there is a place for the private one. So let's fight back for our privacy, which we are taken back from the totalitarian regime. And but there is one question still open where we can find your translated book in English now. And Pani Tamara, you...
Yeah, unfortunately I do not have, but you can buy I'm sorry, you can buy in Amazon and everywhere. It's easy to find, and yeah, but I do not have now to sell.
So that's a task for all of us to look for the books and to look for new books coming with the new questions which was raised in this discussion. I'm so sorry to close this public debate, but thank you so much, Dr. Tamara Hundro, for this incredible book presentation, incredible books and generations. As well as to Katarina Mishchenko and Dr. Matthias Schwarz and Lukasz Czeweczorek for organizing this. Thank you so much for being with us. And